Hi, our truly proud YouTube watching American patriots. We are back. We are true conservative Asian voice in America. Today is May 17th, Friday 2019, a beautiful Friday afternoon. In today's video presentation, we would like to share with you many bites of news that came out of the Korean Peninsula and Japan and several other neighboring Asian countries. Since the missile launchings by the big fat ugly swine of North Korea, Kim Jong-Un, on May 4th and May 9th. Kim Jong-Un, he was not saying anything. However, about the reason why he was launching the missiles, but Jae-In, the MOONkey Jae-In, that's the nickname I gave to the evil, crafty, lying deceiver of South Korea, president of South Korea, Jae-In. I gave him a nickname, nice nickname, to depict who truly he is, what kind of person he is. He is anti-US, pro-China, and puppet of Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping of China. So Moon Jae-in came out in the South Korean news media conference, press conference, and he said only one day after May 4th launching of missiles by Kim Jong-un, Moon Jae-in says, whoa, once again, as a top spokesperson for Kim Jong-un, he says, Kim Jong-un had no other choice but to launch missiles because his country is starving. People in North Korea are starving and they are dying of hunger, dying of starvation because of food shortage caused by the economic sanctions imposed by UN and US, North Korean economy, against the North Korean evil regime. And if United States and the UN lifted those sanctions, Kim Jong-un didn't have to launch those missiles. What Moon Jae-in said was totally nonsensical, totally unreasonable reasoning, and just total stupid reasoning whatsoever. He was just speaking as a top spokesperson for North Korea and the Xi Jinping of China. That's about it. He didn't make any sense. So he blamed the economic sanctions imposed against North Korea for the what Kim Jong-un was launching the missiles for. To really see what's happening in North Korea, the World Food Program, WFP, and UN's agency, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of UN, asked North Korea to let them in to North Korea to inspect and to see what's really going on in the North Korea. So when they arrived in North Korea to do the inspections, they were not allowed to inspect any other sites but only those sites that were designated by North Korean regime. And it was just totally fake stages. They were faking the people starving, just fake story generating sites. Just totally fake. So, in this video presentation, we would like to prove to you that North Korea is not going through any food shortage problem. What they are saying about like 10 million people facing major starvation right now in North Korea is all a fake news. It's all fake news. Totally fake. And we're gonna prove that. We're gonna prove that in this video presentation. VOA, Voice of America, obtained and analyzed North Korea's import and output statistical data collected by International Trade Center, ITC, and reported that in this year's 2019's first calendar quarter, North Korea imported $80 million worth of food from China in obvious violation of the UN sanctions and United States sanctions against North Korea's evil regime, of which $16.44 million worth of food was imported were flour and wheat, and $1.89 million were spent on rice, barley, and other kernels, including corns and beans. But North Korea's total import amount from China was 454.98 million, which means North Korea spent only 4% of its import from China on food, which also came down from last year's first calendar quarter expenditure on food by North Korea, which was at 6.5% of the amount they spent on all the goods imported from China during first calendar quarter of 2018, especially for their flour and wheat import compared to last year's first calendar's 26.94 million. North Korea's flour and wheat import amount went down. It decreased by more than $10 million worth. That $10 million figure was calculated by subtracting $16.44 million that North Korea spent this year's first quarter on flour and wheat from $26.94 million they spent on flour and wheat last year. I mean this year. So $26.94 million minus $16.44 million worth of flour and wheat. They spent $10.5 million less than last year's first quarter on flour and wheat, which translates to 39% decrease in flour and wheat import from China. Overall, North Korea reduced their spending of money. So they spent less money on food, the flour and the wheat, compared to how much they spent on flour and wheat during the first quarter last year, 2018. Also, on the list of for what kinds of imported goods the most money was spent by North Koreans, flour and wheat import scored only 9th, and the rice, barley, and other kernels like corns and beans import scored 46th on the list of for what kinds of imported goods the most money was spent by North Koreans. This means, this gets translated directly to that. There were 8 other categories of imported goods. North Koreans spent more money than for flour and wheat imports, and 45 other categories of imported goods. North Koreans spent more money than on rice, barley, and other kernels, including corns and wheat. So, in last year's calendar quarter, and this year's calendar quarter, first calendar quarter, North Koreans spent money on importing. They spent more money on importing plastic then artificial filaments, then artificial fabric like a nylon, fruits and dry fruits and nuts. Fruits and dry nuts and dry fruits and nuts comprised more than 5% of North Korea's first calendar total import amount of 26 million from China. So they spent more money on buying fruits, importing fruits, dry fruits, and nuts, and those kind of things than on flour and wheat. More shocking finding was that import of the US made and European cigarettes was 4% of 454.98 million total imports from China. So they spent 4% of 454.98 million total import amount from China on cigarettes. And they spent how much on the wheat? On the wheat and flour, they spent, if I get that correctly, 4%. So same. They spent 4% of their money on importing wheat and flour supplies from China, and the same amount, same 4% on the fruit, dry fruit, and nuts, which was not absolute necessary food resource. Isn't that shocking to all of us? It is truly shocking. Therefore, this data collected by ITC easily proves that North Korea is not having food shortage problem. Seeing that North Korea spent considerable more money on fruits, dry fruits, and nuts, and even on cigarettes. They spent money on cigarettes. Guess what? The money they spent, amount of money they spent on importing cigarettes from China, we are talking about cigarettes made in the US, luxury cigarettes. US cigarettes and European cigarettes are considered to be luxurious items in North Korea. Or maybe in South Korea too. But the money North Koreans spent on cigarettes, the foreign cigarettes, like a Marlboro, Kent, and European cigarettes, rose up by 250% compared to last year's first calendar quarter. And then they are saying, oh, we ran out of money. We don't have money to buy food. We are having food shortage. So let's think. Does it make sense? Why are they starving? Because they don't have flour and wheat and rice, corns, and those kind of food sources. Yet they're buying so much cigarettes and non-absolute necessary items. Plastics and artificial fabrics. For what? For what? So it's so obvious that North Koreans are faking. They are faking. All their outcries for food is fake. Total fake. If you are really starving because there's food shortage, can you spend so much money buying cigarettes? The US made and European made cigarettes? It just doesn't make any sense. So we are not the only ones suspecting North Koreans fake news. They're lying. They are lying to get food supply, food aid from the United States and other nations. We're not alone in detecting their fake news and their lies, their deceptions, total deception. After looking at the VOA's report on the ITC, the International Trade Center's statistical data report on imports and outputs by North Korea, Bradley Babson, he is the ex-World Bank senior advisor. He concluded after looking at the VOA's report, he concluded that North Korea is not having food shortage as it claims. And also he said, North Koreans' total expenditure on import from China rose up by 10% in 2019, first calendar quarter, compared to 2018's first quarter expenditure on imports from China. Now, the real true story is coming out. However, Moon Jae-In of South Korea, the MOONkey Jae-In of South Korea, who is top spokesperson for Kim Jong-un, and he is a puppet hired by Xi Jinping of China. Moon Jae-In, MOONkey Jae-In ignores all these reports and he is telling the whole world that the world needs to give North Korea $8 million food aid package. And he could not wait till a world response to what he was asking the world to do. So he came up with $8 million food aid package. But we all know any food or rice that are given to North Korea will be used to fatten up Kim Jong-un. He is the big fat ugly swine of North Korea's already obese belly and feeding his military troops and nuclear engineers who are working so hard to further Kim Jong-un's nuclear ambition. Let's recall what our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said in a news interview about a week ago. He said North Koreans could save money they spent on the firing missiles, and rechannel that money and feed the North Korean people who are starving. Guess what? Back in 1992, during Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il's regime, 3 million North Korean people were dying of starvation. They were actually dying. At the same time, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, he spent $90 million to mummify and to preserve his father's dead body, his father's corpse, his father's deceased remainings. To mummify his father's remains. And it's still there. It's still being preserved in the like a glass container in North Korea, in some palace, occupied by the Kim family members. We should not give any food, any money, any food supply to North Korea whatsoever. Not even humanitarian aid. Because we know if we give them any food, that food supply will go directly to fattening up Kim Jong-un's already fat belly and to feed his military troops. So why do we waste our food? We rather rechannel that food supply to some poor countries like many countries in Africa and Middle East and in the Southeast Asia. There are a lot of people starving today. Don't give any food to North Korea because that will spoil up. Giving North Korea any food will spoil up our President Donald Trump's all this hard work to bring Kim Jong-un down to his knees after giving up his nuclear ambition once for all. So, President Trump, we should stop, we should tell Moon Jae-In, the MOONkey Jae-In of South Korea, to stop even thinking about giving food to North Korea. Because that is direct violation of the sanctions, economic sanctions imposed against North Korea. They are faking. Their outcry for food shortage is wrong. It's a fake. It's totally fake.